is Beal, and I've lived here in Lake Atitlan in Guatemala for 8 years now. I'm an expat, I guess you'd call it, living in the U.S., born and raised in the U.S., but I decided to make a move and move down here 8 years ago with my wife Elaine, and we've created a whole new life for ourselves. It kind of sprung from a concept of having a successful career for 25 years and living the normal American dream of being successful and owning your own home and having a car and taking the fancy vacations. But after 25 years of that, I really just started re-examining my priorities and what I wanted out of life, and I realized that I wanted less, ultimately. Less consumer items, a smaller house, didn't need a fancy car. And so once you start analyzing your priorities and you realize your needs are less, you don't have to work as hard. And so I was able to take a retirement at the age of 45, and not a permanent retirement. I still work now, but I stepped back from that normal executive life that so many people live, of going to work and trying to attain success. And in my retirement, I've gone back to work, but I've gone back to work for a nonprofit foundation. And so my work now is helping the people in that community with their educational needs, their nutritional needs, and helping them with job development programs, and basically just helping to provide a better living for the people that live in my community. The people that live in my community are Mayan. In this case, Kayak Mayan. Guatemala has a really strong indigenous community, a really strong indigenous population. There's 22 different distinct Mayan tribes and languages and customs in this country. And so we have the Kayak Mayan over here. Even within the lake region, there's two other Mayan tribes, the Sutuhil on the other side and the Quiche further up. So I find the indigenous tribes very interesting and very fascinating, especially in this case. The indigenous people here are very interested in keeping their traditions and their customs, not becoming more westernized. And so we do have to be very careful and sensitive with that, not to westernize them, you know. And the women like wearing their traditional clothes and still doing their traditional weaving, and the men still like doing their farming. And so we want to find ways to help them live a better life and have better nutrition and better education, but not turn them into clones of Americans. So I took a retirement, moved down here, and after a couple years of relaxing and just enjoying the freedom of my retirement, I started volunteering with a nonprofit foundation. The foundation is Amigos de Santa Cruz, or Friends of Santa Cruz, and its mission is to help with the education and nutritional needs of the community here. After a few years of volunteering, I was asked to become a board member, and I've been serving as a board of director for about 4 years now. When you become a board member of a foundation, you have to ask yourself, what's my role going to be? And no one stepped up immediately and said, Lee, this is where we want you to fit in. So I gave that some serious thought about what I could really do to help with this foundation. And I come from an entrepreneurial background, and when I look around this lake here, all I see is business opportunities, things that could be developed. But I really wanted to create a business model for the local people so that they could create better livelihood for themselves. And so I've tried to provide tools for the locals so that they can become entrepreneurial and create their own businesses. And out of that came a series of projects. Some of them are tourism-based, some of them are not tourism-based. But the tourism-based programs, or Kayak Guatemala, we developed that brand of kayaking around the lake because many of the locals go out and spend time in their little dugout canoes and fish anyway. So I thought that's a natural cultural fit for them. They're comfortable on the water, they like being on the water, and now they can go out and share that experience with visitors. And so we developed the Kayak Guatemala brand, we bought some kayaks in, and we've trained local guides to interact with tourists and share some of the beauty of this area. That model became so successful that we now have other elements besides the kayaking in terms of cultural sharing, exploring the Mayan villages. Some people come through and want to volunteer, so we find volunteering opportunities. Some people want to study Spanish, so we try to make matches up with that and find them teachers so that they can learn a little Spanish. And so there's a variety of programs that we have implemented to help provide jobs for the people. When people come to me and they ask me, can they work for me, I never say, I have a job for you. My answer to them when they come to me is I say, I have an opportunity. So if you want to learn from me, I can provide some training, I can provide some tools, and I can teach you how to go out and build your own business. And that's become very rewarding for me to not just put somebody on a payroll and work for me, but to teach them how to create business for themselves. So our guides, for example, when they come to work for us, we work with them to design their own business cards with their own branding. And we get them on TripAdvisor, and we find clients for them. So they're out really developing their own client base with our help. We design and manage websites, and that's how a lot of people find their sources when they travel now. If they go on TripAdvisor, they go to websites, and so if we can develop a website for somebody and a web presence, then that helps them. Our latest project with Anita, our newest mentor or student, is she wants to start a cooking school. So we're helping her with the marketing, getting her online, developing a little web page for her, and helping her with a little microfinance to get her cooking school started. In terms of our life here, we have a home. We live much smaller, much simpler than we did in the U.S. Our home was about 600 square foot. Our home in the U.S. was 4,500 square foot. Just our heating bill in the winter time would run $450, $500 a month. In our house here we have no heater, there's no air conditioner. We just open the windows and have a nice climate year round. Our food costs are much lower than we had in the U.S. and we have virtually no insurance here. Insurance is such a big part of life in the U.S. If you have a business, you have to have liability insurance. All of these different insurances, car insurance, medical insurance, and here we just kind of pay as we go along. Everything is so much more affordable. So we feel like we're able to have a better quality of life. We certainly get more exercise. We certainly eat healthier. We certainly take more time to enjoy ourselves and reflect on what's important to us, and live our lives still with a schedule. We still get up every day and have things to do, but my commute today, for example, was to paddle down to you.
Which is great.
It was a little busy on the lake. There were 4 kayaks out there this morning. A little rush hour traffic.
How important is it to know Spanish when you come here to visit or to live here?
That's an interesting question because Spanish is the language we'll speak them here. But I have friends, expat friends, who've lived down here for 10 or 20 years and know very little Spanish. And they get by, you know, they can go to the grocery store, they can buy their food, they can get by. But I feel like that they're rather isolated from the Mayan community or from the locals because very few of the locals speak English. And so if you're going to have real friendship and real interaction and get to know the locals, I think Spanish is very helpful. It is interesting how quickly you can pick it up when you really work at it. And most people, I think, can become fairly fluent in a matter of a year if they work on it a little bit each day. And living down here, you have the opportunity to practice every day and work at it, and can become, I hate to call myself fluent because if someone who's really fluent in Spanish, they would say, no, you're not using your proper verb tenses. But I can get my point across in most cases.
The currency here is different than the United States, and would that be something of a concern for someone coming to live or to visit? How easy is it to use the currency here?
Well, there's always there's always the conversion rate that you have to kind of wrap your mind around. You know, in this case, it's about 7 quetzales per dollar. But in terms of like accessing the money, you know, there's kiosk in the airport you can use, there's ATMs you can use, and most people use credit cards these days over cash, and so you can always go into that ATM and withdraw the local currency and use that. For people that are here for a short time, I always recommend having a cheat sheet, you know, a little piece of paper in your hand that you can look down and say, okay, it's 56 quetzales, you know, that's, okay, roughly $8. And that helps your mindset to understand, you know, how much you're spending.